Welcome back, everyone. We're here on Pokemon Platinum, continuing past the breeding town, aka it has one building that you actually care about, and then you move on.
Oh, is this the...
Although, I'll,
You
sorry,
go.
go on.
You go. Because I'm off
Just
topic.
it's interesting that this is one of the best egg grinding generations because there is a one tile wide area that goes through the town that gains you like a couple of hundred steps if you're on the bike, and you just go up and down over and over.
Jeez.
So the breeding town or house areas seem to be designed around doing that, except for Sun and Moon for some reason.
Well, Sun and Moon, what you have to do is, you know that there's the little
Yeah,
pen. You have to go in
you get out,
and then
you
go in
ride the
circles.
Taurus in circles.
Yeah, which will kill your 3DS's circle pad. You know what? I'm gonna give Gen 6 props for this. Gen 6 has, I think, the best egg breeding thing because if you go to Lumio City, you can just hold right. And you don't even have to go back and forth. You can literally just hold the button down and watch TV.
And it goes in a circle.
Because it goes in a circle.
So occasionally, I look at a Pokemon and I ask myself why it might have evolved a particular property. And whenever I look at Ponyta and Rapidash, my thought is, ponies and horses sure got tired of being ridden around by humans a lot. So they just evolved to be on fire. That'll stop those pesky humans.
According to the anime, the fire doesn't burn people they trust.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a unicorn thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, the Rapidash does have a horn on it, yeah.
Yeah. This is also, God, I think Gen 5 stopped having the grass that you can't bike through, which, thank God, because I don't think anybody likes the grass that you can't bike through. I don't remember if you can do this in Gen 4, but in Gen 3, if you use cut in this big grass, it becomes small grass. And then you can also...
I don't know if you can. I don't mind the idea of it, because especially if they want you to slow down.
I guess, yeah, but in this specific area, it doesn't really do anything to make it more interesting. Like, if there was small grass here, I guess it really wouldn't change anything, like, because they still have, areas where they want you to use the bike, too, is also the thing. Like, I guess if they wanted to make it kind of like a bike obstacle course, like the tower with Rayquaza in it in Gen 3, but I also hated that stupid place, so I don't really feel like I need it.
Well, that's another thing where I don't mind the idea of it. It's just a matter of doing it right.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I appreciated the attempt to do it because Pokemon dungeons tend to be pretty vanilla, all things considered.
There's only so much you can do with the tile-based system.
Yeah, like, honestly, the only generation that I can think of with, like, interesting puzzle gimmicks in their dungeons is Gen 1, where they had, like, the spinny tiles and teleports and stuff like that.
And pushing the rocks on switches.
Yeah.
And instead of just a hole.
Yeah. Whereas in Gen 2, the dungeons were more just about exploring, and there weren't really too many gimmicks about that. And that's fine for a while, but it does make each individual place feel a little bit similar. So, like, I get trying to add gimmicks into some of the areas to make them more interesting. It's just, they should be good, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. Because I'm trying to think, they generally don't have too many of those, aside from, like, strength or ice sliding kind of stuff. Like, I guess Gen 5 had, like, the magnetic stones in that one cave.
That's just expedited rock pushing, though.
That is true, yeah. I'm having a hard time trying to think of, like, most of the time... And, I mean, granted, that's not really a problem, because Pokemon's not really meant to be hard anyway, so... But...
What I think they could realistically do, though, is, especially now that we're fully 3D, is... obviously not go quite as hardcore as it, but do kind of like Resident Evil-ish puzzles.
Yeah, I think that would be nice, at the very least for optional stuff. If they wanted...
Just simple, basic 3D puzzles.
Yeah, especially if they wanted to, make the exploration more of a thing. Because, and this is something that I noticed in ever since playing Gen 5, because I replayed it a couple of months ago, not too long ago. And you don't even really have strength puzzles anymore because they made the boulders big, and they're pretty much almost always just for shortcuts.
Right next to the hole.
Yeah, so it's not even like you have basic like push the block into this particular place in order to get a TM kind of stuff going on. Why are you using Razor Leaf on a fire type?
It's a baby. I'm 7 levels over it. It's a
Uh,
baby Pokemon, and it's a critical.
Fine, be right. Whatever.
Man, I remember when Togepi was introduced into the anime, and it was like everyone was super interested in it because it was like one of the only Pokemon we had from the Gen 2 list at the time.
Yeah, and then
Yes.
and
Snubbull, Meryl, Donphan, and Togepi were the only ones.
yeah,
I think Togepi was the first one to appear over
yeah,
here. No,
because the egg
um,
hatched like what? Like before even
did the egg...
Gym 5
the-
in the anime, I
yeah.
think.
Yeah, I was going to say, did the egg hatch before the movie came out?
It definitely hatched before the movie came out. Like Misty
Gotcha.
had the egg for a while, like and was carrying it around. I don't remember exactly when, like the Togepi hatched, but I feel like it was like before Koga, I think. But so yeah, so we had Togepi before we saw pretty much any other Gen 2 Pokemon, and it was kind of disappointing because Togetic is not very good. So, I mean, granted, Togekiss is actually very, very good stat-wise, but I don't really like the evolution because it feels like it skipped a step, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like Togetic to Togekiss could have worked if there was, like, another Pokemon in between the two of them, but there isn't, so it just feels like a gigantic jump for it to lose its entire body, or more like its body and face stuffed together. So I don't know, but like battle-wise, it's actually pretty good as far as I remember, or at least it was in some meta. I don't remember. uh, but yeah, one of the things I actually remember growing up is that back before Gen 2 came out, a friend of mine, it was either a friend of mine or one of my cousins, had a Japanese holographic Togetic card from Japan. And I don't know how they got it, but they gave it to me as a birthday present. And I held on to it for forever. And it was like,
Nice.
I didn't know what its
Yeah,
name was, though, was the thing, because it was in Japanese.
Yeah, people shipped cards over here way before the games in the anime caught up over here, so it was like our only way to see Gen 2 Mon at the time.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it, along with all my other classic cards, got ruined when because I kept them in a shoebox at a friend's place. A shoebox. I kept them all in the shoebox because I didn't believe in binders, and I brought them over to a friend's place, and I accidentally left it outside, and it rained that night, and they were all ruined. So that sucked. Yeah.
I bet you believe in binders now.
Yeah,
No, because I
my
don't
binder is
believe in
still downstairs.
collectible. I don't believe in TCGs anymore. I mean, I never really played any of them, but the idea of trying to actually keep up a competitive deck in something like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh sounds like
A nightmare,
throwing your
yeah.
money into an incinerator, pretty much. So
Pretty much,
bit.
you just have to buy the singles that match the competitive deck.
yeah, and
It's
I'm
like, hey, yeah, you could come up with an inventive strategy, or you could look online and see what the competitive decks are and just copy those.
You know what? You sound exactly. That's the exact thing that I see a lot of people doing with fighting game characters now, where it's just like, oh, you could take a character that's not doing very well and try to see if you can come up with a strategy for it to work. Or-
Fighting games are a little more varied than trading card games.
Yeah, that's
TCGs, you have like the 3 or 4 decks that are winning, and then you just do those because there's TCGs. It's half just having the right cards and half just getting the right draws.
yeah. I mean, it's weird because trading card games aren't like, because poker, for example, is like, I guess all card games now that I think about it. It's not entirely luck. Like, you can definitely do the best with what you're given a lot of the time, and even with a worse hand, the better player will usually win. But there is, it's a random deck of cards. You get what you get, and there's just some
Not
points
much
where
you-
you just don't
you just
get what you
can't-
need,
And you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, pretty much.
The reason the competitive decks are the competitive decks is because they have the best odds of getting you a good win condition when you
Or they have enough variety in them to make not the best pulls, but make the pulls usable.
Yeah, pretty much.
or as many pulls usable as possible.
Variety doesn't seem to be the name of the game when it comes to competitive decks and TCGs.
Well, that's also a good point, because if you have more than one, like if your deck's about variety, then you're less likely to get the cards you want with good synergy. You know, 'cause
It tends to be more like packing your deck with as many copies of the cards that you need.
Okay, I'll just make half my deck Pot of Greed so I can get all the cards I need.
Yeah, there's a reason that card was banned.
Yeah, I know.
But what does Pot of Greed do?
It just makes you draw 2 cards.
But what does Pot of Greed do?
It's a card that then causes you to draw 2 cards, and it thins your
I don't
deck
know
out.
what it does.
It's just a meme, because in every episode of Yu-Gi-Oh, whenever they use Pot of Greed, they have
Which is
to
almost every episode.
they always explain what it does, and it's like, okay, guys, we know what Pot of Greed does. We're on episode 57 of this show. You know,
But you have to assume it's someone's first episode, I guess.
yeah, because they're gonna understand what the hell's going
Yeah,
on when they're halfway through the battle tower and like Joey's possessed by an Egyptian spirit or some crap, and they don't know who any of these characters are. And
Joey, I don't think Joey ever gets possessed. Merrick got possessed, though. That was a thing.
Well, Merrick's possessed the entire series, because he's the big. Oh wait, no, not Merrick.
No.
I'm thinking of Bakura.
Yeah, you're thinking of Bakura. Merrick got possessed like halfway through Battle City. And then spent half of that on a ship because they stopped for a filler.
Filler land. where Kaiba made a video game where his brother is now his girl. It's weird.
Kaiba has issues that he has to sort out.
Hey guys, it's Pika Blue.
Oh man, you didn't even turn your DS upside down. I can't.
It still makes me laugh that because they cut out all of the Season 0 stuff where Anzu, Taya, actually does things, the only time in the anime that Taya actually gets to do things is the Noah Kaiba filler arc.
That's like her only fight, duel, whatever in the entire
Yeah.
series, right?
Because they cut out everything canon that would have had her doing things. So they had to have her do something during a filler arc to get her actually relevant to the show. And you know what? It's funny because I say they cut out everything with her actually doing things. They also cut out everything with her actually being important to the other characters. So you don't even get Yugi crushing on her anymore. She's just kind of there.
I don't know why Tristan and Taya are even in the show. Because I mean,
because they were more involved. They were more involved during the manga Season 0 stuff.
Yeah,
they were.
I know,
they were
but
characters that were added during a time when the direction for the show was kind of really different. So they just kind of exist now. They're holdovers. And like during the last season or the last arc of the manga, which are 2 completely different stories, I might add, because they go in wildly different directions. Anzu is kind of there as an emotional through line in that shonen heroine kind of way where she stands around looking worried and thinking to herself a lot.
Well, that's just what she does through most of the show. It's just like, oh no, Yugi's gonna lose.
Well, I mean, she's there for an actually important reason in the sense that she's like worried about the pharaoh disappearing, and she gives him the name tag thing, and that helps him remember his name, and it's all very, I'm sure it's very powerful for the right kind of audience. I'm just not the right kind of audience. And that's me being charitable. It's kind of lame if I'm not being charitable.
I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a fun, dumb show.
Yeah.
But the emphasis there is on dumb. Like, you kind of, like, it's, I mean, granted, like, it's easy to make fun of Yu-Gi-Oh!
You wanna really jack up the stupid levels? Okay, I have, from back in the day when I was trying to order on Amazon to get, like, subtitled versions of the Japanese. I'm talking, like, really back in the day when it was hard to find this stuff. I have a DVD box set of, like, this bootleg version with subtitles that are awfully translated. And by awfully translated, I mean the subtitles translate the name Kaiba as seahorse. And Mokuba is like wooden seahorse or something.
What?
It's a really bad translation, and it makes just watching the show the most magical thing. It's like watching Yu-Gi-Oh with old school YouTube captions turned on.
Oh man, I'm thinking of like Vietnamese Crystal translations for Yu-Gi-Oh. And
It's probably something like that, yeah. I have that DVD box set like hidden away somewhere in here. I bought it because like back in the day when we were young and stupid, and 4Kids was dubbing everything. It is like, you had this subset of people who were insisting that Yu-Gi-Oh was way better when it was uncut and uncensored. It was better, but it wasn't that much better, guys.
Yeah,
but
it's still a trading card
yeah,
game anime.
it's like
Yeah.
you had to find out how much better, but this was before you could just torrent subtitled versions that were fan subbed off the internet. You had to like try and hunt down DVDs and shit.
Yeah. You see, one of those.
Or go to import shops with bootleg VHSs or something.
Yeah, that
see-
kind of thing.
You see, it's one of those things where people are like, "Oh, the Japanese is so much better for a lot of these old," and by old I mean like 90s and 2000s eras shows, and it's like, okay, yeah, they're not censored, but ultimately the censorship doesn't change anything important.
In 4Kids' case, 4Kids had translation issues. I'd say translation issues in big massive air quotes, because they weren't really translation issues. They were just things that they did for no reason. For example, in most anime, you'll find moments of quiet, and Yu-Gi-Oh is no
Oh,
exception. 4Kids had this nasty habit of assuming their audience
Shoving
had like
music.
massive ADD and would get bored if people shut up for more than 2 seconds, and like throughout half the show, Battle City especially, they filled every moment of silence with so much inane chatter. So much chatter. Everyone had to be talking at every second of the show.
One of the worst examples I can think of that is One Piece, which I'm pretty sure most people
Yeah.
agree is the worst 4Kids dub.
That's because the censorship actually mattered in that show.
Yeah, because I've seen
Whereas censorship in Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't change the plot in any real way.
Yeah, because there's
the most
stuff
part-
like who's its face, the girl from One Piece.
Nami's mom. gets-
Nami's mom doesn't die. There's one comparison I saw where Usopp from some early arc like fell like several hundred feet in the air. In
Yeah,
the
and
Japanese,
it's quiet.
In the Japanese, it's supposed to be a dramatic thing, and in the Western version,
They do the Looney Tunes whistling falling sound.
yeah, so that it's played for comedy instead, and it's like, yeah, that actually changes the meaning of the show. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then like, okay, well, this is the weirdest thing 4Kids used to do. For some reason, all signs, including the English ones, would just be censored
Right.
over with like symbols. So you couldn't have a closed sign on your shop.
No. Most of the time they were just painted over entirely with nothing on them.
Yeah, you couldn't have a closed
on screen.
sign on a shop. It had to be like a circle with a slash mark through it, like a no smoking sign without the cigarette. It's just like, okay, why? I don't. I can read English.
I don't, you see, I don't know how hard it would have been in the mid 2000s to just change the text to closed, but considering.
No, it
not
was
that hard.
already an English
It's in
sign
English.
that says closed.
Oh, okay. In
They
that
just
case,
got
then
rid
what
of the
hell?
word. It's like, okay, 4Kids had this complex about like kids in the audience having ADD, and apparently that meant words would distract them. I don't get it.